Start kare? Okay, hello everyone. So this is a short video for the purpose of a strategy on studying administrative law, right. So I will briefly discuss how to study and what are the major topics to study in administrative law, right, and what are the source you can take into account while studying it. One common thing that is common to almost all the strategy, that recent trend has to be followed, right. So the recent trend in the administrative law is basically that the questions of administrative law is connected with the constitutional law, right. Like if you will look at the topic of judicial review of administrative discretion, right, or administrative action, then you will find it is directly or indirectly connected to the fundamental right topic, right. So that has to be taken into account. So primarily speaking, there are three topics in pure administrative law. The first is actually your delegated legislation. Now in delegated legislation, generally one topic, so three things you have to study. The first, the meaning and a scope, right. Now scope means basically it is talking about different theories of delegated legislation and the famous case of In re Delhi and the views of judges specifically. Do read that, right, because it was a very interesting judgment, right. All the judges have a different opinion, right, but they concluded almost same, but the opinion were different, right. So the Justice Mukherjee opinion is generally asked, okay. So do read the judgment part. The second is about the delegated legislation. They are asked that what is the relevance of that particular delegation in India, right. Relevance, that is the philosophical part, why it is relevant, okay, why it is relevant, okay. So obviously increasing the complexities of the law, and ultimately it is the administration who goes on and implement the law, so sort of flexibility is there, okay. So the philosophically they ask that in a diverse country like India, a law has to be bended, a law has to be flexible in order to its proper implementation, right. So that is a question related to delegated legislation, that is the need of delegated legislation, right, why it is needed in India, okay. The third thing is basically method of delegation. Now in method of delegation, they generally you must have studied the different method of delegation, right, and the control over that particular method, right. If someone is the legislature is delegating it, what is the control that have been adopted, and there are multiple case law that is related to that control. Okay, suppose if this control is provided, whether it is a mandatory control or simply a sort of a discretionary control method, like publishing of the rules, whether it is mandatory or discretionary, right. So there are nuances attached to it, okay. So that you have to study, understood. So these are the three general framework that you have to study about the delegated legislation, right. So if you cover these three, you are covered with it. The second topic that is important is your natural justice, principle of natural justice, right. Now this principle of natural justice topic, PNJ and administrative discretion, these two topics are somehow connected with the fundamental right topic, right. So when we are talking about this PNJ, right, court have always, if you read any judgment, you must have seen that the court, while talking about a particular principle of natural justice, invariably attaches some of the fundamental right, okay. Like an authority must not hear the case which he is involved in, right. So court, you must have seen, almost always talks about Article 14 in relation to that, okay. So that thing has to be understood. Second thing is in PNJ that you have to study is different component of it, right. Now while studying different component of it, write its application with reference to legislature, right, with reference to judicial discretion, and with reference to issuing of writs, understood. So those three things has to be noted down, okay. So do not read it specifically, right. It has to be read jointly with these three things, understood, quite clear. Now if you look at the third topic, right, that is your administrative discretion, most of the question that they ask in the administrative discretion is basically related to writs. Okay, whether writs can be sued for the purpose of administrative discretion. Yeah, what is the allowable judicial privileges, or you can say judicial action on administrative discretion, right? Generally what happens normally, that writ is understood as the ultimate remedy, and the lawyers generally do the same thing, that they go for writ, right? Meaning if they don't see any other remedy, they simply file and writ. Okay, so there is a lot of case laws involved here, that whether the writ would be granted or not. Okay, so what is the ground for granting of writs for administrative discretion, right? So generally for administrative discretion is used for taking an action by the executive, right? So generally the writ of mandamus that is there. Okay, so focus on that, right? Writ of mandamus. And after that, very simple topic that relates to administrative law, not exactly administrative law, but still is basically Ombudsman, Lokpal and Lokayukta, right? So the best way to study it is simply read their bare text, bare act, and some philosophical aspect of it, right? Like how far Ombudsman is useful. Okay, don't go into the nitty-gritty of appointment of Lokpal, right? But the philosophical aspect, that the appointment is a good or not, the process needs to be improved or not, that has to be studied, right? So that is the primary difference between judicial preparation and your law preparation for optional, right? Okay, instead of going into nitty-gritty, you have to go into the detail. Okay, sorry, you have to go into the philosophical aspect rather than going into detail. Okay, so administrative law, I think 4 to 5 days is more than sufficient to study it, but decipher these are the topics, these are the things that I have to study. Now as to books, I personally find IP Messi book very brilliantly written, right? There are specifically 4 chapters with this particular book that you can sometime this Sathe, that is also a good book that you can refer, right? And apart from that, obviously I have prepared, reviewed some of the notes on this website defactolaw.in. There you can go for that particular website, but obviously everything written in the book cannot be put up on the website, right? So there is a copyright issue, but still notes prepared by one of the students have been put up there, so you can go through it, right? But obviously notes approach is only good once you have studied it thoroughly. Okay, so simply do not go for notes directly. Okay, read it thoroughly, then go for notes, right? So if it means if you are not a law student, then you need to go it thoroughly, then go for notes, right? But if you are law students, directly going for notes will do, right? So that will be sufficient, right? That will suffice. Okay, so this will be all about administrative law. It is a very shorter topic, right? For other strategy of other topic, obviously we have separate video for that. Okay, and you must have seen the playlist in which the strategy have been given. Okay, so thank you very much.